Patrick Gall with the Homegrown Entrepreneur, today interviewing a special guest, Jennifer Glenn. Jennifer Glenn owns her own event planning business in Dallas that she's been running for years called Tenant Link Inc. This is a corporate and specialty event planning. She's laughing right now. This is a corporate and specialty event planning business. So the first question, thank you, Jennifer, for coming on.
It's a pleasure, Patrick.
Awesome. Well, I'm really pumped to have you. So one of the things I wanted to mention and ask was Jennifer is a friend of my mom's, which is how I was introduced. And I did want to ask from Jennifer's perspective what our first introduction was.
Yours and mine?
Yours and mine.
Oh, my gosh. I
Maybe
don't know.
First that I can remember, that you probably think that I can remember.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, I guess you were over at probably on the house on Woodside, and I was probably over there visiting your mom, and you were there, and I met you kids.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just guessing. I honestly really can't even remember. I've just known you basically your whole life. So I just don't even know when it all started.
Well, then that was a bad question. I was looking for a different answer. So at what point did you help me in my high school career?
Oh, okay. Well, I would say it was when my niece went with you to your prom.
And how did all that get sorted? What started and
okay? So
and
the whole
that?
Okay. So what happened was your mother called me up and said that your date had canceled, like on Wednesday, and prom was like Saturday night or Friday night, and she knew that Erica, my niece, was your same age because I had brought Erica over to play, or back when Erica would spend some weekends with me, I'd bring her over and y'all would, play. So she said, I know Erica, would Erica be interested in going to the prom with Patrick? He's just sick that his date is canceled on him at the last minute. So I called up Erica, and I wasn't sure what her answer was going to be because she was kind of going out with a guy that was possessive, and I didn't like him at all. And so I thought I might be in for a fight on it. But she said, I told her what happened, and she said, I'd love to go. And so she agreed to go, and I didn't have to twist her arm or do anything. And, I was like, well, that was easy. And so then she came over to your house, and y'all went to prom. And I know your mom said that when she came in, she looked like a princess in her pink dress. And she had a great time. Y'all had a great time.
She did. She did, and we definitely did. And I was very, very lucky for that. So there you have it, folks. That is how mine and Jennifer's relationship truly started in my young adult years.
I guess so. That's right. And then y'all all ended up at Texas State, and I had been at Texas State. So, it was great.
Good lead-in. That's exactly where I was going next with this is if you can give me kind of a brief history on how you got to where you are now with your business and an early iteration of your business if you didn't start with this as your first business. Okay.
Well, I had been a commercial property manager for office buildings, which is how I met your mother. And then I had really come to the top of where I could grow with the company that we worked for. I had was turning 38, and there was really no other building for me to go to that wasn't owned by a company that was like a Prudential Insurance. It had to have tons of math and stuff. And I was more of a people person. I didn't really want to do spreadsheets all day. I wanted to, mix with the tenants. But I loved commercial property management. I loved it when a tenant came in and was upset about something, and I could have them leave my office with a smile on their face. And a lot of that was just by explaining to them why we had to do things the way we did it. So that was the part I really enjoyed. And I started doing events at the building that I managed. And then other tenant appreciation events, and then other managers would say, hey, will you help me with my event? And so I started kind of doing events for others, just getting food brought in, getting balloons, decorations, stuff like that. And then so I went to the company I worked for, and I said, would you want to hire an events coordinator? And they thought about it, and they said, no, we really don't have any way to fund that position. So then I took a leap of faith, and I said, what if I start this company that goes around and does tenant retention programs for office buildings. And I started out with like 6 things, and one of them was events. One of them was tenant gifts, like a boo-boo gift, like I got stuck in the elevator, we're sorry you lost valuable time in the elevator. There was temporary signage, like if they were doing construction in their lobbies, a sign that would say, pardon our mess, walk this way, don't go down that hall, stuff like that. Just temporary type signage because the managers never had the time to pull that together. And then there were like 3 other things. And to be honest, I can't even remember what those things were because they never really took off. I did do the other 3. And then the signage just kind of, I don't know, people just, usually we ended up doing events about construction. And so we had the kind of the signs for that, for our construction party, like build your own tacos and blueprints for success, wrap up event and all this stuff. So, and then the construction companies started to get wiser and smarter, and they started making their own signs that said, don't walk down this hall, don't walk over here, because they were liable for people that were going to, walk into a hole or slip on something. So then I was just doing events and gifts. And during this time, I just worked out of a closet out of my house. I worked for 3 years out of a closet that we put a drop down kind of desk top on there. And I just worked out of that. And that was before email. That you had to call and everything. And then I had this really neat fax machine, though, that I could type into on the cover sheet. So it was kind of like a pre-email. I could type up on this cover sheet and say, Sarah, checking in on the proposal I sent you yesterday, blah, blah, blah. And then I came up with my moniker name of Jen Glenn. So I'd say Jen Glenn. So, and it would show up on their fax machine. So every morning they would just go in and look at their fax machine, and it was almost like they got an email from me. And then they would be able to call me or respond or send me a fax back and say, we got it or whatever. And so then the events just started taking off. I was still doing a lot of gifts. I had a really great gift supplier who did beautiful work, tenant gifts for Christmas, everything like that. And then she decided to retire. And so I found another lady, and she was good, but she still wasn't as good as the first lady. And then when she retired, I started working with another lady. And after that, I just was like, I'm kind of done with the gifts. And because the event business had really started taking off. So I'm kind of out of sequence a little bit, but after I'd been in the house for 3 years, my husband said, hey, you've got to move out of here. It's just too much. I had our whole house, had all my decorations and all my stuff, and I had just taken over. So he said, you got to move out of here. So we found some real small space up by our house that had a little office in the front and then just a real big room in the back. And I thought that'd be plenty big enough for all my decor, which is laughable now. But anyway, and I worked out of there. I worked out of there for maybe 6 years, maybe. I can't remember. And then I was just growing out of that. And I had 2 other storage facilities and then this back room. And I'd hired an assistant by this time. And so then I ended up moving again. And I've been in this space about 11 years. And I've been in business 23 years total now. So
3 years.
Next in April. And so now I'm in a industrial space that's got the front of the offices is office space. I have 2 assistants, and I have a big warehouse in the back that's full of decor with a big garage, garage door. Yeah, it is a big garage door that goes up and
donut walls everywhere.
Yeah,
lined with donuts.
Well, that's not in my office, thank God, or I'd weigh 1 billion pounds. But we do have donut wall parties. But, it was tough in the beginning. And the thing that has happened to me is I've been doing this 23 years, and I've gone through, like I mentioned, different gift suppliers. I've run through so many different florists. They either quit or they they just start relying on your business, and they don't bring you anything really neat and new and unique. So you have to kind of make a change. Same with balloons. The balloon people I work with have just gone out of business. I mean, it's just amazing how many different vendors I've had to go through over these years. But I mean, it has been 23 years, so it makes you think you have been around for quite a while.
Certainly.
But when I first came to my husband and said I wanted to start this business, he said, absolutely not. You got a full-time salary. You're not going to just quit working on me. Forget that. You know, he said, you're not going to sit around and not work. And I said, I'm not saying I'm not going to work. I'm saying I want to do this job, this business. And he was just, no. Well, so I called his mother, and I told her about it because she and I had always gotten along really well. And she had been the breadwinner of their family. And she was a junior high principal. And, you know, that's a tough job right there. So, yeah. And she had been a teacher and this principal her whole life. And her husband was one that just, you know, he had a job, but he just had kind of a factory job. And that's all he wanted to do, was just go do his factory job and come home. And I think if she'd had the opportunity to not have to be the breadwinner, she would have maybe wanted to be able to do something else. So when I told her that I wanted to do this, she said, I think you should do this. And I think he should give you a year with a reasonable quota. And if you don't make it, then you go back and get your old property management jobs back. You know, you go back into that field. And I said, well, I think that's perfectly fair. So she called up my husband and said, I'm going to talk and you're going to listen. This is how it's going to go down. So she told him, she said, you're going to give her a year. You're going to give her the quota, and then a reasonable one, and then you'll go from there. Well, that was 23 years ago. And so obviously every year I just did better, and better. And then there were some recession years, like 2007 was tough here. And then 2017, for some reason, was not a great year for me. But it was not bad enough to where I had to let any employees go or sell any, I've got a company vehicle, and I didn't have to, do that. But one of the reasons, though, I'll be honest, is that I've been able to be successful is when I really don't take a big salary for myself. My husband has been able to pay a lot of our, overhead. And so I've always kept my salary, fairly low for people who aren't in that position. They probably wouldn't be able to make it on what I'm doing if they're kids and everything like that. But I didn't have any children either. So it wasn't like I had any mouths that I had to worry about feeding. So, that's one thing is I've done very well, but I also, to be 100% honest, I didn't give myself the salary that most people would probably want if they owned their own business. I just gave myself, kind of what I was making in property management. And so, some people, because I thought when I first started this business that I would have a lot of competitors. Other managers would go, ooh, that sounds like a neat idea. I'm going to do that. Well, what I quickly realized was nobody else could do it because nobody else could live that way. Most of the people are, either single moms or just weren't in a position where they could literally just give up their salary for at least 1 year and then really just not make, really a big salary. So it's really the passion for the business that is what's probably made me successful. It's not like I make a ton of money. I mean, I drive a Ford. A lot of people who start their own business think that they want to have all these luxuries and riches, and that's fine for some people. But mine was really more the passion of the business. And, I don't need a Rolex or a Mercedes to be happy. So the rewards were great, just knowing that I had achieved the goal. For me, that's what brought me happiness.
That's really interesting.
But it was hard. I mean, it's a hard business. I mean, when you own your own company, it is 24/7, literally 24/7. When I was working out of the house, I'd get up in the middle of the night and go in and send one of those fax cover sheets I was telling you about. I'd wake up and go, oh, I forgot to send so-and-so something. And I'd get up and I'd find myself in there 2 hours, you know. It's just, and I say it's kind of like I did have a child. Tenant Link is my child. And it started out, it was a baby, you know. I would go a day without realizing I hadn't even had a chance to get in the shower. You know, I was so busy working out of that closet or getting in my car and running to meetings. Because, again, that was before email. That's before you could send photos. That was before you could do anything. So, I mean, you had to literally do everything. Plus, that was before they even had George Bush. It took an hour to get from Plano to Las Colinas or longer because you had to get on 5 highways. So, I mean, it was just really hard work. Well, now that child's 23 years old. And so it's still, it's running like a 23-year-old kid would, but it still needs guidance. And so, you know, it still needs the direction of a mom, so to speak, to say this is right and this is wrong, and these are the expectations I have, and this is how it needs to go down. And then I hired, first, I went through several assistants, too, that were young girls, and they ended up being on MySpace and all this stuff so much that I was just like, I thought I needed a young girl, but really they just never seemed to work out. Plus 2 got pregnant on me, and so that was bad because then they turned into a mush brain. And so then I hired a guy came in named Kelly. He came in and interviewed, and I said, you know, I've never had a guy before. He was a friend of a chef that I worked with, and the chef recommended him. And Kelly was married and had 4 boys. And I knew he couldn't get pregnant on me. So I said, well, you know, maybe let's try it. So Rich, my husband, interviewed him and talked to him, and he felt comfortable with it. And so I hired Kelly, and he brought to the company the idea of, hey, you know, you're having this catering group, bring in all the soft drinks, bring in, you know, all these things that we could bring in. I can go to Sam's and get soft drinks. You're paying this company here $1 for a soft drink. It costs 25 cents at Sam's. I can go get those, and we'll make the 75 cents. And so he did that, and now we charge, you know, $2.25 for those soft drinks. But, you know, he brought that kind of male physical strength to it, because I just was like, I'm not going to break my back lifting up cases of soft drinks. Because by the time he came along, I was 48. And so, you know, it was like I wasn't, you know, in my 20s anymore, and I didn't want to be doing all that heavy labor. And so he just brought a big different angle into it, which really helped. And then about 4 years ago, I hired a millennial, an older millennial girl whose mother had worked on my website, and I had done all my graphics, and that continues to be my website person. I've known her since I started the business, and I had known her daughter as she grew up because she had great work ethic, because her mother was divorced and raised Allison pretty much on her own. And so I knew her when she was in high school, and she had like 3 jobs in high school. I mean, she's always had a work ethic. And so long story short, I found out that she was available, and she'd worked at Chili's for 11 years as a kitchen manager. So she knew food. She knew everything. And so I hired her, and she's been with me 4 years, and she has really helped take off a lot of the paperwork load for me and run events without me having to be there. Because, I mean, Kelly's good, but he's a guy, no offense, and he just doesn't pay attention to the details, whereas she does the details.
My gosh, wow, thank you. That was
so, yeah.
You answered like 23 questions I had in there.
That's it. That's kind of the whole story.
Yeah, the little pieces I wanted to pick and choose from there, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah.
The first one is, and I know you've got very limited time, so I'm going to make it quick, but the first question I'd like to ask is, when you first got started, who was like a coach / mentor / guide for you, or was that just a passion?
Well, I'll tell you, I had been in a networking group. I had been in a women's networking group for about 5 or 6 years prior to that, and I was one of the younger girls in there at the time. And a lot of these women owned their own businesses. And I'm not talking selling Mary Kay. I'm talking about own their own businesses. And I thought, if those women can do it, I could do that. So they were kind of all mentors in a way. And then there was a couple of women in there that were mentors as well. One of them, I would go over to her house and she helped design my logo. And, so I would say it was that women's group that I had been involved with way before I even had this thought. But it made me think, well, if they can do it, I can do it. But there really wasn't anybody, that was out there doing it. And again, I really had no competitors because with all my commercial office building background, I knew so many people in the industry that I just, I started working with one manager and then another manager would tell them, oh, you need to work with this gal. She's doing our parties. And then it just exploded really quickly. And that's why I had to hire an assistant. I actually hired the assistant. I was still working out of my house. She was having to come to my house because it just
in the
was
closet.
On fire. Yeah, in the closet. We did. So
that is incredible. Wow, that's interesting.
So I would say that. I would say those women and that Women in Executive Leadership Networking Group were my mentors.
Because you would think it's intuitive, but I think it is. Like, this is kind of a piece that I'm reaching right now in this business is splitting and diversifying revenue streams to find out which ones work and don't. And so intuitively, that's basically what you did yourself and grasped onto the one that did, which is where we have now Tenant Link, Let's Party.
Yeah. Yeah, Tenant Link, Let's Party.
That's nice. Let's Party.
Yeah.
I did have something that I have a specific story in mind, but if you have one better, I want to hear it.
Okay.
Like, what's a really unique struggle you faced and how'd you overcome it? And then after that, I'm going to ask you one final question. We'll be done.
What is the most unique struggle?
What is, maybe not most unique, but it's like, what's a really crazy struggle? Because you're in event planning, so you have vendors coming all over from different places, bringing things over. So did you ever have like a unique budget constraint or a unique struggle that you've overcome and you're really proud of? I have this candy party in mind.
Oh, you have a special candy party?
Yes.
You know what? I feel like every day is a struggle with these budgets because every year everybody's budget seems to get cut more and more. Back when I started, we could get these huge big props for the lobbies and turn the lobby into, Mexico City and have a band and, you'd have all this stuff. And now I'm lucky if I can get a guitar player at Christmas with some hors d'oeuvres, it's just, which means then, of course, your revenue, you just got to do more and more. The reason I've been able to be this successful is because, again, I'm not looking for huge profits on every party. I work on volume. I do a ton. And so, everybody in the commercial real estate world knows me. They know my parties. They know Jen Glenn. No one hardly even knows I go by Jennifer. Everybody calls me Jen Glenn. Even when they introduce me to people, hey, this is Jen Glenn.
It's really
and then I had my
Jennifer is hard.
Yeah, I know because my mother took out an N because I had two in Glenn. I know, so every diploma, everything's been misspelled. But then I had my caricature put on my business card, and then I had my caricature put on my signature line of my, my email line. So I'm holding, a hula hoop and a tray of martinis. So, and then my hair, I have the red hair and it's short and it's kind of, waves out and it's blonde, it's like three colors. And so, people know me by, oh, that's her. Yeah, that's because before they even, if they've never met me, all they knew, they just remember my signature line. And so, you've got to brand yourself is also very, very important.
Yeah.
But I would say, trying to go back to your question, man, there's been a ton of them, just a ton of them that have been struggles or unique or whatever. But I can't think of the candy party. You're going to have to refresh my memory.
I think there were some really tight budget constraints that they wanted to work with some very, very low budget, and you came up with a party that would fit that budget.
God, I feel like I do that a lot.
I guess it's fun to me, but it seemed like there was like less than $1,000 to spend for an entire party of 100, and you came up with this idea to have candy everywhere or something.
I don't remember.
And still made it happen. I was like, wow, you know, I would have written that off, but I mean, it's volume and it's who you know.
Well, it is volume.
The relationship.
That client was probably one that we do a ton of other stuff for. And so if they need stuff done, then we don't want anybody else. You know, I don't want anybody calling Corner Bakery or any other company to come in and bring stuff into my clients. So if they say this is all we have, then I say we're going to make it work, you know. And like I said, we don't have to make huge profits, but I know that they'll hire me again then the next time they need something.
Mm-hmm.
But we do that a lot, really, a lot. I can't think of a specific candy party, but a lot. Well, we do. We're on our third event today.
I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're on our third event today.
Wow.
So, I mean, we just do a lot of good volume, and that's what keeps us afloat. But people know they can call. I mean, I do have clients that call me and say, oh my gosh, you know, I need this tomorrow. And sometimes we do. We run around, and if we have to go to Sam's and pick up some stuff, we tell them, we say, well, we could get it done, but we're going to have to go to Sam's and get a cheese tray that we can repurpose it onto our, rework it onto our, you know, fancy display piece, if that's okay with you. And they're like, that's fine, just we need it. And that's what we do. So we'll just do whatever it takes, really. So, but I have had people call me and say but the problem that I have, I think, is when people call, because, you know, if a person has $400, I mean, that's a lot of money for you or me as a person. Hey, you know, I got $400. But when you're trying to feed, you know, 4,000 people, and I'm like, wait a minute now. And so what I do is I just go with the math with them. And I say, okay, if you take $400, you take off 8.25% tax, you're talking about $360 or something, and then you divide that by your 4,000. That's like 3 cents a person, or whatever it is, you know. And they're like, "Oh my God, you're right." And I'm like,
"You're right."
I'm like, you know, 400 sounds like a lot to you and me just to go knock around town, but you can't even go to McDonald's and get something. You know, you can't a coffee and a Egg McMuffin at McDonald's and stuff. You're going to get out there for $6-7. You know, I can't do it for $2. I just can't. So I mean,
2 cents.
Yeah, I tried to. So I mean, I do say no, you know, to certain people. But once I explain to them why, they're like, "Oh my God, you're so right." I said, "Why don't you just save that $400 and put it towards your summer party or your Christmas party or whatever?" And
good thinking.
You know, and they do. And then we have a little bit more to work with the next time they want something.
Yeah, instead of the one fraction of a party.
Yeah.
Well,
you know?
That leads me to my final one, really, is,
mm-hmm.
I mean, and most importantly, I think for everyone that I want to take from every interview is one piece of advice that a business owner has, a startup business owner, somebody thinking that they want to start their own business. One piece of advice do you think got you to where you are and kept you there for 23 years? Well,
I would suggest anybody going to business to take some accounting classes. If you don't already have some accounting knowledge, you need it because you need to be able to read your own QuickBook spreadsheets. You need to be able to figure out your own bank accounts. You can't just hire an accountant to take care of all that. You have to know what's going on with your business all the time. You always have to sign your own checks, and you can't just, here, I'm going to give this to somebody to do, because not that they're going to rip you off or anything, but they're going to make a mistake and they're going to pay a vendor twice or whatever. But if you're signing the checks, you're going to remember, hey, I already paid for this casino thing. Because to you, you remember the parties, or for me, I remember the parties, and there's been many times where my accountant would have paid people twice, which they would have probably told me, but it's just like, why have that happen? But the most important thing is to take some accounting classes so that you can understand all your profit and loss reports, just everything. Because unfortunately, I did not have any accounting, and I've paid for it only because the reason I've been able to be successful, though, is because my husband's a CPA. And so he can do all that, but I don't like working with him. I don't like him telling me you're not making the money or you're doing this. I don't want to work with him because if I had my own knowledge, I wouldn't have to work with him on that. And I have a separate account guy that comes in and helps with, bank statements and all that kind of stuff. But I just don't, I wish I just had that. I wish I'd had that knowledge before I started business. And that's the only thing I feel like I didn't have that I should have when I started this business. And if I hadn't had a husband for CPA, who knew to register my company with the government, you have to get your company registered, make sure somebody doesn't have another name out there that you want. That's very important. I worked with a lady who just came up with a fun name and was in business for like 10 years. And then she got a stop and cease and cease business order because this other company in another whole state had that company name for 20 years. And they found out about her and wrote to the whoever, and she had to stop and whatever that phrase is.
Cease and desist.
Cease and desist. Her business. And she was an older lady, and so she just closed. She just never did that. But so he knew from his, because he was the CFO and had finance and had run businesses before for others, he knew that I needed to go legally get my name registered with the government and make sure, and they do a big mass search, make sure nobody had your name. And that's why I had to do Tenant Link Inc.
Real? Oh, you're a corporation?
Link. Yeah, and get incorporated. He wanted me to get incorporated, but I had to be Inc. Because there was several other Tenant Link. There was another company called Tenant Link out there, up way up north that did antennas on top of office buildings. They were an antenna
cool name.
company.
I think it's a really big win for you to have a name like that.
Yeah, so I got Tenant Link Inc. because of my website. Because if I just had Tenant Link, it wouldn't work, So anyway, I'm Tenant Link Inc. / Let's Party, and I got the Let's Party part out of when you do a party in an office building lobby, people come down, the architects and the lawyers and everybody else in the office is in that office building, and they say, hey, who's catering this party? And we want to do an open house in our offices, and I'm like, here you go, and here's, but to give a card, your business card to a tenant that says Tenant Link is just kind of cold. So I had this was again back before you could even get on a computer and do any of this. I found some kind of artwork that said Let's Party on it, and I had been pasting it onto some of my brochures. And so I just said, Let's Party is doing the cater. And so then I changed it up to be Tenant Link Inc. / Let's Party. And then my business cards actually just say Let's Party catering. And but I never had that checked out or anything. And I found out, and later I started getting calls there had been a balloon company called Let's Party that owed a lot of people money. So I started getting calls that, they were like, hey, and I'm like, I don't even know anything about balloons. I'm this is who I am. And so they believed me, luckily, and it went away. But that would be to get your company checked out, make sure you have the legal rights to your name and take some accounting classes.
Wow.
And just realize it's like having another child or a child. And if you really are passionate about it, it's going to be a 24/7 thing. It's always going to be on your mind. How can I do this? What can I do this better? Or at least it was for me, and that's why I'm here 23 years later.
Boom. What a way to end it. Jennifer Glynn, thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you, Patrick. It was a pleasure. I hope I didn't talk your ear off. Obviously, I'm very passionate about it.
No, it's the viewers, and I think you've given just a perfect, consolidated, atomic bomb of information in a very small amount of space. I really appreciate your time.
Okay. Thank you.
So for all you viewers out there, that was the Homegrown Entrepreneur. This is your host, Patrick Gall, signing off with the lovely Jennifer Glynn. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.